The Toyota Tacoma is one of the most popular vehicles on sale today, and it's easy to see why. They are incredibly capable off-road, they are actually fun to drive, they're reliable, and they have a massive amount of aftermarket support. Recently, Toyota released the new 4th generation Toyota Tacoma, and it has made a lot of changes that have left enthusiasts scratching their heads. Further, turbocharged reliability has been questionable, although it's too new to say for sure, but there are highly welcomed changes that greatly improve the experience too. Today, I want to find out if the 4th generation Tacoma will end up being a better buy than the 3rd gen or not. But first, I want to extend a massive thank you to Finley Toyota, who have kindly lent me this 4th generation Tacoma for the afternoon. The trim I'm looking at today is the 4x4 SR5, which has a couple of creature comforts, but still missing some features I'd prefer to have, like a 360-degree camera, cooled seats, and some more off-road chops. The exterior looks like Toyota took a Tundra and put it in the wash. Most of the design cues match that of the Tundra, but some people think this truck is too small to match those looks, and I don't completely disagree. The front end is as tall as the Eiffel Tower. That being said, I like the trapezoidal front grille, though not as much as the 3rd gens. The fenders droop down toward the base of the wheel arches. There's a giant mouth on the bottom housing your LED fog lights and radar cruise control sensor. Beneath is a massive splash guard that you can remove, and on the sides, you get LED headlights with halogen turn signals. These double as the DRLs, much like the base models of old. The 3rd generations not only looked better, but they had a sequential LED turn signal as an option. And on a TRD Pro I looked at briefly, it had the same headlights as this. You have to upgrade to the Limited to get the full-blown LEDs. That's a tad disappointing in my opinion, but I did like the hidden Tacoma badging in the housing though. I think they did a fantastic job with the side profile. I love the chunky fenders over the wheels, and there's only a couple body lines on the door panels. The fender flares feature air curtains. The door handles have a lot of design to them. I think they look good with the body color fascia. Plus, they have keyless entry. This SR5 has incredibly basic mirrors, though you do get a blind spot indicator. Higher trims feature turn signals and cameras. I do think the rear spoiler is a bit tacky, but what isn't tacky are these base level wheels. Unless you're using this as a work truck, chances are you'll end up replacing these with some kind of off-road wheels anyways. They don't look bad. There are two weird quality things I noticed. One is that when the window is down, you can pinch the rear door card and panel together, which felt suspiciously cheap. Next is the orange peel down the side. I know pickup trucks do this often, but this was really easy to notice on this truck. I suppose it's going to get really dirty anyway, so it's not a big deal. Working our way around the back, you'll notice a tailgate with Tacoma embossed in the middle, some LED taillights, though I wish the turn signals were separate, and a bumper that's just a little over-designed. The bumper features body color in the same area that the old truck had it in, but the angled integration doesn't look as clean to me as the 3rd gens did. Also on the back, you get a reversing camera, towing ports, and a tow hitch. The bed is only 5 foot on this model, but 6-foot beds are available. The tailgate is incredibly easy to open. In fact, it can be done with one finger. Once inside, you'll see tethering points, convenience lights, and a neat rail system that you can attach things to. For more practicality, I'd personally put a cap shell over this to turn it into a long wheelbase 4Runner of sorts. Obviously, that's a more solid choice if you plan to haul your family, friends, or dogs. Getting inside the Taco is pretty easy, and once you're inside, the cabin is just as chunky looking as the exterior. There are some advantages and disadvantages to this. And once we're inside, we get this really nice steering wheel with some nice soft touch materials on it. It doesn't feel like leather, but it doesn't feel like the cheap plastic either. It's kind of a nice in between. It does feel like a miniature version of the Tundra steering wheel. On the right side, you have all of your cruise controls. We have adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist. I find them relatively easy to use. And then down here, you can change your music mode, and you got back and next buttons over here. On the left side, you have volume controls, voice control, and all of the controls to control your fully digital gauge cluster. Now, I think that this is actually pretty good information-wise. It gives you a tachometer, a speedometer, a temp gauge, and a fuel gauge. But my one thing is that it's not incredibly customizable. Sure, you can page through a bunch of different screens, and I like how you can see your audio right there, but I do wish there was a separate needle for the speedometer. When you're getting up to the speed limit, it's kind of hard to see when you're about to kind of top off on the speed, if that makes sense. And so having only a digital readout is kind of annoying. Because it's not that customizable, I actually prefer the last generation's gauge cluster, which had both a tachometer and a speedometer a lot more than this one. But visually, it's kind of cool looking. You can customize all your settings through here. It's actually pretty easy to use. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 menus, each with their own little sub-menus. So it's a pretty easy to use system. You can see tire pressure, you can see a pitch and roll meter, which is kind of cool. You can see trailer brake control, that's pretty fun. And you can see some auxiliary gauges, much like on a full-size truck. And if I press on the brake, it shows little tiny brake lights on there. How cool is that? And on the left side, we have turn signals with a pretty nice dampening to them. We have automatic headlights with fog lights. And on the right side, we have pretty easy to use wiper controls. And if we pull on this little lever here, the steering wheel is fully tilting and telescoping, giving you quite a bit of range to get comfortable. And just to the left of the steering column, we have a million blank switches with about 5 different really useful ones. So this adjusts your meter brightness, as you can see right here. It's pretty easy to use. We have automatic high beams. You can turn on and off your traction control. And of course, you can adjust your truck bed lighting. But this button does something just a little bit different. This is actually your manual light leveling. You can actually reduce glare to oncoming traffic. That's a feature I've never seen on a new car before. How neat is that? Now, once we get over to the door panels, you'll see a lot of hard plastics. I'm incredibly disappointed to see that. Even the door handle is hard plastic, but the good news is we have one touch down and up for all 4 windows. We have a pretty cool feeling joystick right there. All of your lock controls are right there, and I really like this solid rubbery feeling grab handle. Actually, feels like it's not going anywhere, although you can see the door panel wiggle just a bit. And over here we have a nice soft touch armrest, but unfortunately, that's also hard plastic as well. But the good news here is that we have this nice little rack here, we have our JBL speakers, and we have some pretty big door pockets. So another interesting thing I noticed is when you open the door panel, inside of this little door jamb here, there's this little thing you can pop out, and it just reveals this void. If anybody knows what that is, please let me know, because I'd be incredibly curious to know. To the right of the steering column, we have our engine start-stop button mounted up here. I think that's pretty cool. Now, on top of the Tacoma's hard plastic dashboard, which doesn't really bother me that much, there's this little JBL speaker. But there's one little cool thing about it. Press the eject button, and the JBL speaker will come out, meaning that this is a wireless Bluetooth speaker. You can see it's got all the typical JBL speaker controls, USB Type-C, and all of these contact pins, so you can take this speaker with you on whatever adventures you may go on in your Tacoma. A pretty cool feature that I haven't seen on any other car. And over here we have your 8-inch head unit, which has wireless and wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I actually find it pretty easy to use, and I love how Toyota has the same infotainment system across the board, no matter what screen size you go for. And in fact, I think this head unit is the only size you ever need. I think the 14-inch sticks up just a little bit too much, although it would be nice if they used some more of this bezel space. However, I think the 8-inch fits into the dashboard much nicer. I find the infotainment system incredibly easy to use. It's got 5 basic buttons. CarPlay shows up as a 6th one, and you can even enable full screen CarPlay to eat up this if you want to as well. And on the right side of the head unit, we have a USB-C port that I almost did not even notice. That's a pretty neat trick, and I like how it's hidden there. Now, this reminds me of when the Volkswagen Atlas hid one in its mirror to use it for a dash cam, but that would require wiring it to the windshield, so I don't really see the point in that, but this is still a great place to charge your phone, especially if you're putting it on this little shelf here. And down here we have some nice, easy to use, giant air vents. And speaking of giants, we have these giant physical climate controls. These are absolutely fantastic. We have your heated steering wheel button just over here. It's incredibly easy to jump from low to high on those spring mornings where it's freezing in the morning and that's 30 degrees warmer in the afternoon. We have your heated seat buttons over here. Love that. And you can even get cooled seats if you go for one of the higher trims. But yeah, this system is incredibly easy to use. The dials are absolutely massive, and so it's incredibly easy to use, especially while wearing gloves. And this makes me happy to see because the new 4Runner is going to be getting these same climate controls as well. A feature I really like about the physical climate controls is that the recirc button shows a truck rather than a typical car. What a neat little detail. Over here we have a wireless charging pad, which is the perfect spot to put your phone, but if you don't want to wirelessly charge, you can also put a second phone here as well. And over here we have 2 USB-C power delivery ports with 45 watts. Combined, it has 52.5 watts. And we get a nice little 12-volt socket if you're a little more old school. But I also like how there's this little pocket down here so you can put even another phone down here, and you have another rubber grab handle. And this is pretty cool because on the passenger side, there is one in the exact same spot on the door panel. So the passenger has two equidistant places to grab their hands onto a grab handle, especially when you're going off-roading. And right here is your shifter for your 8-speed automatic transmission with sport mode and manual shift modes. It's a great shifter, and I consider it an upgrade from the previous gen. One thing I am gonna miss though is having a manual handbrake. This has your typical electromechanical parking brake, but this poses an advantage because it has the auto hold feature. So when you press this button, you can take your foot off the brake while you're in drive and it'll keep the car stopped. When you put your foot on the accelerator pedal again, it'll accelerate and take your foot off the brake. So in other words, when you're sitting at a red light, you don't have to keep your foot held down on the brake when you're in drive. That's a pretty cool feature. And then here, of course, is your 2-speed transfer case. You can push this and go into 4 high, or you can even go into 4 low, and I think it's incredibly easy to use. We also have your tow haul mode, and then this gives you extra power when you're towing. So this is basically your VTEC button. You press this. I know I'm saying VTEC, it's a Toyota, I don't care. You press the ECT power button. This gives you extra power. Maybe we'll test that out in a little bit. And over here, we have a bunch of, one thing I really think Toyota should have done with this is put auxiliary switches here so you could add on stuff like KC lights and whatever aftermarket things you want to add onto a Tacoma, especially since these are going to be popular overlanding vehicles. But just beneath that, we have two very nicely placed cup holders. Even though they only have 2 teeth, they hold my cup in there incredibly well. That thing ain't going anywhere. And over here, we have a nice vinyl center console armrest. I like how rugged it feels, although it would be nice to have something a little bit softer. But pull on this lever, and you can open it up, and it's actually quite large, although sadly, it doesn't have any kind of power ports in it. But just behind that, we have 2 more cup holders for the back seat. We'll get to those in a minute. Above here, we have an auto-dimming mirror with home link, perfect spot for a sunglass holder, halogen dome lights, and my favorite feature, a power opening rear window. And of course, you got all your dome lighting controls here, but pull open the sun visors and you get a nice little convenience light and mirror, which doesn't come on the SR, but what's standard across the board is they can fully adjust. And on the passenger side, I love how it says Tacoma on the front. I think that's really cool. You get a nice little shelf to put yet another phone or whatever else you might need. I do find these being useful quite a lot in these newer cars. And we have a fully lockable glove box. If we take this bubble wrap away, you can see we have quite a bit of room in here. I'm actually pretty impressed given that this is a pretty small truck. Now, before we wrap up, I want to comment something that's really weird. This little grab handle. Now, it's kind of a grab handle, but you can see it's fully solid all the way through, so you can kind of grab onto it, but not really. I think they should have done a full-on grab handle instead of this like half-looking one. I think it's a little strange. Now, despite what I said about that little kind of grab handle, you do get a full one up here, so that kind of makes up for it. Now, even on this SR5 with the fabric trim seats, I think that they did a great job on these, giving them plenty of bolster to support this really cool pattern. But as you can see, they're a manual with height adjustment, recline, slide, but surprisingly, for the driver's seat, you get lumbar support. That's a pretty neat feature. So even though there's a couple things that I would change, I think Toyota did a really good job with the design, layout, and functionality of the first row of the 2024 Tacoma. The previous gen Tacoma was known for a relatively small back seat, and even though the new Taco is bigger in general, is this back seat smaller? So once we're in the back seat, with this seat in my default driving position, me being about 5'8.5", you can see that I have pretty abysmal legroom, but I still have plenty of headroom. Now back here, everything is hard plastic, even the armrest. That's an incredibly large disappointment. But again, you still have one touchdown and up windows, some decent door pockets that you can barely see. Now, a funny little thing I noticed about the rear cup holders is that it says capped bottle only, meaning that you can't have any open top drinks in the backseat of your Tacoma. Now back here, amenities are slim to none. Even though you get those cup holders I was mentioning earlier, you do get a nice little 12-volt socket that I am pleased to see. You only have a passenger side door pocket, which is perfectly fine in my opinion. But on a $50,000 truck, you can't have soft touch armrests like this. This is incredibly disappointing. Another thing I'm really incredibly disappointed about is how upright the seats feel. If I had maybe another couple degrees of recline, I think these seats would be perfectly fine. I think they're incredibly comfortable, but again, they feel like way too upright. I don't feel like I have enough room back here. And given that this is a bigger truck, I am a little disappointed by how tiny the back seat is. And to make matters worse, I don't even have an armrest of any kind. I would have really appreciated that, but because of how thin the seat is, I can kind of understand. Although one nice thing you get back here is you get some nice little hooks and a tiny little dome light. And finally, we have some nice, very solid feeling grab handles, although you can see they wiggle just a little bit. Now, obviously, I have to check out the middle seat comfort for you guys. There's a little transmission tunnel, which basically forces my feet out here because this is really not long enough for me to get my feet in. Now, yes, it does feel like a hump seat, but you can see I have just enough room to fit 3 across back here. I have a decent amount of headroom, but put the smallest person in the middle seat. You're not going to be wanting to ride in this for longer than I would say a 30-minute car ride. It's not the worst I've seen, but I wouldn't recommend it. But we're not done with the rear seats just yet. If you pull on this little tab on the bottom of the seat, you can actually lift the seat to access some underfloor storage. Plus, it's even got this cool little Tacoma badge written on it. And if you pull on this little tab, you can actually fold the seats down to create a flat load floor, which means that you can't load a crazy amount of things back here, but you can kind of turn the back seat of your Tacoma into a really tiny van if you choose, and you can still have some nice underfloor storage. And obviously, because there's no trunk of any kind, all of the trunk-related items like the first aid kit and the jack are all included in the back seat of the Tacoma. Plus, they've hidden another JBL speaker back here. The interior provides some great features with only a couple of compromises. But how does it drive? First, you get a pretty peppy 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder making 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. A lot of people don't like this new powertrain since it ditches the naturally aspirated reliability and towing capability, but this engine has more power and torque off the line. The V6 felt slow, but this doesn't as much. And that's good since it gets the exact same MPGs as the V6. Hybrid iForce Max versions will provide more fuel economy, but also more complexity. Will the 2.4s be reliable long term? Only time will tell. However, it is mated to a smooth 8-speed automatic transmission or a 6-speed manual. Okay, so right off the bat, how does the 2024 Toyota Tacoma SR5 drive with the 4x4 powertrain and the 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with 278 horsepower? Well, immediately, I think the power delivery is a lot better than the outgoing model. Even though people do miss the V6, I think that the turbocharged engine does give you a lot more power at a much lower rev range, and so this makes it a little more fun to drive, especially when accelerating to freeway speed limits. One thing I don't love, though, is the steering feel. So the steering is a lot lighter than the outgoing model. It drives more like a Toyota 4Runner now, and that's partially because the truck is just that much bigger. It's now the exact same size as the 4Runner, and in fact, it's actually the same truck now as the recently revealed 6th generation Toyota 4Runner. So as a result, it drives like a tiny, full-size truck. It's still kind of fun. It still handles pretty well, even though you do get some body roll in the corners, but it's just, for me, it's not the same as the 3rd gen. And part of that is attributed to this gauge cluster that I was talking about earlier. I find it really annoying that there's no speedometer needle, so when I'm getting up to a certain speed, I want to be able to see when I'm about to hit that speed. It's kind of hard to do that with just a digital gauge. I really wish this was more customizable. However, having the speed limit there and having it turn red when you go over the speed is kind of cool. Now, when it comes to the cruise control, you can have adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist if you want. I do find it a little annoying how the lane keeping assist tries to intervene, but as far as the intervening itself goes, I think it does a plenty fine job. When I go slightly away from the line, it'll just gently pull me back in lane like that. It doesn't feel forced, and I can take over if I need to. Like if I'm moving over to the other side of the lane to like make room for someone who's pulled over on the side of the road, it'll try and nudge me back in, but I can take over if I need. So it's not the worst system. I think it's actually pretty sophisticated given that this is a close to base model Tacoma. But then again, for $50,000, I'm kind of expecting a lot of safety features like that. Also, I think the blind spot indicator is kind of nice. I'm glad to put that in there. And then in the footwells, we have a top-mounted pedal, but I think it's perfectly fine. I find it very easy to get a good throttle curve on this, and braking feel is absolutely fantastic for a truck of this size. And while you're driving, all of the controls are incredibly easy to use. We not only have our heated steering wheel like I was mentioning, but we have our climate controls that are absolutely massive, and you can feel all of these while not even looking at them. And I think that the 8-inch screen
is all that you need. It's even got a physical volume dial. Although the one thing I find a little weird is that the volume controls and the back and next buttons live on completely opposite ends of the steering wheel. I get that you're supposed to easily access them with your thumb, but coming from a Volkswagen or older Toyota, it takes some getting used to. Usually all the stuff lives in one corner, so it's a little weird, but I see this as not an issue at all. I think that overall, the Tacoma feels pretty good to drive. It doesn't feel as engaging as the third gen necessarily, but the delivery of the power band is pretty good. Now, when it comes to suspension, I actually find it to iron out the bumps really well. Because we have such a tall ride here, it can take potholes really well, and I would actually say this has one of the smoother rides that you can get out there. And then also, while on the highway, road noise isn't too bad, but do be careful about wind noise. I think that's to be expected. And then the last thing I want to talk about is visibility. So there are some pretty thick pillars over there, but over the hood, it is a little bit more than the third gen, so it does feel like you are driving a full-size truck in that manner, but I don't really see that as a big deal. So even though this is a nearly $50,000 truck, it still has some nice creature comforts. So I do recommend taking a look at the brand new Toyota Tacoma, but should you get a third gen Toyota Tacoma, or should you get a Chevy Colorado with a little more power? It's really up to you. And so even though the Toyota Tacoma is quite controversial, I still think you guys should really take a look at this new Tacoma. It drives great, it's got a great power band, but I do recommend cross-shopping competitors like the Chevy Colorado and the Nissan Frontier. And with that in mind, no matter how controversial your vehicle is, I hope you guys drive safe. Thank you to Findlay Toyota, and thank you for watching.